I can't record one of these clean. I just started one, got all the way through the Rangers, and realized that the mic was muted. So let's try this again. Let's do part two. Detroit Tigers at the top. I saw some talk. There's always going to be talk about them with Asa Lacy just because they like SEC arms so much. If they did, they could always do Lacy, come back here and get Sabato, and then really take a massive swing with their Comp B pick. It would be interesting to see. But in this mock, we have them going Torkelson. McMahon is the top pitcher on most boards at this point. Not an SEC arm. They get the ACC arm. Just a great value. The Tigers are going to be able to get a really interesting college arm, pick 38. That's where I'm going to have them mocked as a college arm almost every time with that selection. Baltimore Orioles, statistical team. Aaron Sabato, in terms of his production as a freshman, was just off the charts. Really good numbers, really good performance. I think he's the top draft eligible sophomore bat in this class. I like him more than Austin Wells, who I have going earlier. There's going to be the questions about position and that, but he just hits, and he does. When you look for numbers that are indicators of success, Sabato has them all. When you look at things that are indicators of success, he has them all. I think he's going to be a really great value pick in this range for a team. Marlins, another conservative drafting team. Cabrera is a borderline first rounder. You're buying on the hit tool, one of those good but not great types, does a bit of everything, but the dilettante does everything okay but nothing great, and that can be a starter and a good starter for a team. He kind of is the last tier of college bats. I feel like there's a little bit of a drop-off where there's a reason for big concerns with players after him that kind of make him the end of a tier, and for a conservative team like the Marlins, getting the last guy from that tier, back-to-back bats makes sense. Royals. I understand Royals fans do not like the mock. They took a shortstop, Bobby Witt, last year, and then I have him taking Jordan Westberg as a shortstop, but is really a third baseman. And the thought process here, and I don't know if I necessarily love this pick in retrospect, talking to my buddy Taylor Blake Ward as I was moving picks around in round two, and this is one of those I was kind of focused in on a second baseman of the future for them there. I heard some talk about that, and that's why that kind of came together, that second baseman of the future was something that was kind of being considered with a few of these picks because of the depth of middle infield prospects. Toronto Blue Jays, they like to draft from the MAC. They like to draft players with bloodlines. Kyle Nicholas's uncle's Todd Blackledge, the former NFL quarterback. Ball State has done very well in terms of producing pitchers. Dre Jamison a year ago brought some more eyes there to that program. They've been a very steady pitching program, as Kent State's kind of hit a bit of a snag in the recent years with recruitment and the like. Ball State has definitely kind of stepped up and become the team to see in the MAC, and Kyle Nicholas might have been more of a third round guy, but I could see him also in this range. He's kind of just in that next clump of pitchers for me. Seattle Mariners, Casey Martin might have the best power-speed combo in this draft among college hitters, but his swing and the miss is a huge concern. Mariners like to gamble in round two. A lot of times it's a prep gamble, I should say, by Mariners. DePoto in particular likes to gamble in round two, take a little bit more risks on ceiling. But, Martin he could have been a top 5 pick. Like, if he had shown development over his years at Arkansas and brought in that swing and miss down, he's a top 5 pick in this class. So you're getting a guy at 43. He may never reach AAA. There's a huge risk there, but he could also be a plus starter. So there's a reason for taking a gamble here. Pittsburgh Pirates, I had 2 conservative picks earlier on. When Cherington was with Boston, Michael Kopech worked out well. Kopech is a big guy with a big fastball. Justin Lang is a big guy with a big fastball. He fits in this value range as well, but it was just essentially came down to they've had some success with this. The Pirates have had some pitcher development success. I know it's a new front office, so we'll have to see, but Lang makes sense after going conservative with their first 2 picks. Padres, Freddie Zamora. This is, I talked about them potentially with some of those earlier picks saving some money. If Zamora is healthy and gets a chance to show some improvement at the start of this year, he's probably a top 20 pick in this draft. He might be going to the Cubs, would be a place that makes sense. His floor would have been Oakland, but he tore his ACL, and he is just kind of moving down the board because of that. And without a natural landing spot for him, the Padres get to benefit. They can just take the best player available, and even if it cost them a little bit more, they're getting a guy who, if healthy, goes 20 picks later than he goes in this mock. Colorado Rockies, I talked about them before. Blaze Jordan was who I had as their sleeper pick in the comp round. Or I keep saying comp round, the competitive balance round, I should say, as opposed to the compensation round. There's a lot of different comp rounds. But with him still on the board, the Rockies draft for power. Jordan has that, maybe the best prep power in this class. Chicago White Sox. Dax Fulton, if healthy, I think probably would have been my top prep arm this year. Prep arms are always a concern, but there's just a lot of things to like with him in general. If you are the White Sox and you go with that college bat early and you're going under slot, it allows you to get a Dax Fulton who's going to be an expensive sign. He is over slot at this point. So you save money early on, you get Dax Fulton. You see who's there in round 3. I could see this being very similar to last year's class where they went college and then went prep. I could see them going prep with their next 2, taking 2 more high ceiling arms, and they'll have the money to spend after going under slot with the pick at 11. Again, Fulton is, I think, pretty clearly the top prep arm on the board at this point in time. And if not for his injury, there's no way he's even here. Cincinnati Reds took Tommy Mace, I think, in the 12th round when he was out of high school. And I remember hearing like a real attempt to sign him was made. They liked him. I was talking with someone at the time. I can't remember who, but it's like, I think, and they were telling me they thought it was going to get done. They thought Tommy Mace was going to be a Red. This is a chance to get him. He didn't quite develop the way you'd hoped at Florida. Florida has been a little bit of a downswing in its pitching development. You know, it had kind of those peak years where it was having a top 10 pick every year, but guys like Jackson Kowar didn't quite step up, and now we're seeing Tommy Mace and that. So it's just something interesting to watch, but he's a good arm, kind of in that next tier. I would almost put him below the next 2 guys on my personal board, likely. But I do know the Reds previously had an interest. I mean, enough to draft him and to make a real attempt to sign him. Excuse me. San Francisco Giants, conservative team. Where is the depth of this draft right now, too, as well? That is pitching. That is college pitching. I mean, the college pitching in this class is unbelievable. Jared Schuster could easily go in the first round. Instead, the Giants get their second lefty with velocity. It's Schuster and Crochet is a nice little combo when you're looking at a team in terms of just players you can mold in pitcher development. If you believe in your development, you're getting a pair of lefties with velocity, and those are not easy things to find. You're getting some interesting college arms. Rangers, Seth Lonsway. Back when Lonsway was the star of the Ohio State recruit class, I thought for sure they were going to get Xavier Moore as well. The Rangers drafted him. So we know the Rangers were in the state of Ohio that year looking at prep talent. In terms of their pick, they went with a ceiling guy with the last pick. Lonsway is a bit of a ceiling pitcher because he did not get to pitch as a freshman. He's here on the board. He could go higher. You know, he was really liked out of high school. He was a top 100 prospect across the board, viewed as like a round 2, round 3 guy. There's some more development that can be done. He's not the biggest guy, and the control hasn't always been there, but he can miss bats. And if you believe in your development, he's an interesting prospect and makes sense to the Rangers. Cubs, again, very conservative. Zach DeLoca was not good, really, his first 2 years. He wasn't terrible, but he didn't do anything to really stick out. Goes to believe he won the batting title in the Cape off the top of my head. Had a really strong season there. Started out this year playing really well, too. So he built off of the Cape. And in a class where those college arms, I should say, those college bats are flying off the board, you have a guy right now in DeLoca who is kind of the last of a tier. There's not too many other college bats after him kind of in his grouping. So if you're the Cubs, you get this potential outfielder. He's played in the corners, he's played in center, and it's just he can hit, and the Cubs like to target those guys who can hit. New York Mets, if you are, I talked about them previously, they just went ceiling, early picks, and then completely punted the rest of the draft. Carson Montgomery stood out for me amongst the prep arms, kind of in the start of that next tier of arms. And young for his class, good velocity, all the things you're looking for. After taking the power hitter with their previous pick, going with the, last year they went Batty and then Allen. Here they go Hendrick and then Montgomery, and I think it just fits what we saw a year ago. So let's get through this second round. Milwaukee Brewers, Petey Halpin. Halpin could easily go earlier. Part of me was tempted when I kind of was working at this as a redraft to put him to the Royals. I think he'd make sense. Not the biggest guy. Good athletic tools, young for his class. Fits the Brewers very well if he's on the board, though. I can 100% see him there. The Cardinals. I believe part of my thought process here was, Drew Romo is a guy that's kind of hard to nail down. I'm not exactly sure. I think he's another guy who stands a good chance going to college. Prep catchers in general are a risk. There's maybe more so than even prep pitchers. And when you're looking for catchers, we've seen a lot more of these guys end up going to college and teams not gambling on the early in the draft on catchers. The Cardinals could, I believe I thought in my mind too here that when I was writing this that they had some extra money and they could take a gamble on Romo, who most boards is viewed as a top 40 guy. To get him at 54 made some sense. Washington Nationals tend to be conservative. Christian Roa could be one of those guys who moves pretty quickly to the majors. Showed some good stuff this year, definitely a rising pitching talent, and just gives them another pitcher. I have heard them almost entirely tied to college pitchers, and he's just the value with him was probably, again, a guy who's probably ranked higher than 55 on most boards. Zach McCambly. I kind of went back and forth with this. McCambly could be more of a third-round guy again. I want to put him here because I think he fits. There's also the pitcher from Missouri, who I'm blanking on right now, who would fit very well in addition. But McCambly he's not necessarily young for the class. I believe he's already 21, but it was like maybe a May birthday. But I think in my mind of like cold weather arm, the Indians tend to like guys who were prep arms from cold weather states, and really good spin rate data. So if you're looking at that spin rate data, which we know the Indians look at, you look at their waiver signings and things like that, they are targeting spin rate and players with high spin rates. McCambly has that in spades. Not the biggest guy, which is, again, something the Indians have seemed to go for over the years, that they view that undersized guys who'd be considered, because I believe he's 6'1", which is below kind of the typical height of a right-handed pitcher, that they get better value by taking guys who are undersized. So I think he just fits here. Again, he might make more sense to them in the third round, but I could also see them popping him at this point as maybe a way to save a little bit of money, as Tanner Witt is likely to be expensive. Anthony Servito, shortstop, Ole Miss. Again, we're kind of hitting that point in this class where the college bats are very, very picked over. Servito had a strong cape. He's an up-the-middle player. The Rays like to go up the middle. I had them going so heavy in terms of, well, it wasn't really heavy of prep, so that wasn't it because I had them taking JT again, but then they took the prep pitcher, Micah Bell, with their first pick. So this was just looking at the bats, kind of looking at the up-the-middle bats, and knowing the teams are going to be looking for college bats early and often. Oakland A's, Caden Wallace. With him, the A's continue getting infielders. They like to get guys. They're another team who puts a preference on power, potential, and production. Wallace is one of those guys who could be a harder sign at this point, but I think that Lofton could be a slightly under-slot pick, which gives the A's the ability to flex a bit here and take someone like Caden Wallace and add his power potential to their minor league teams, who play for many of them, hopefully. Minnesota Twins, power production. Gage Workman had a really good cape. I had him as a potential first-rounder. Didn't hear a lot of positive things this spring. Didn't hear a lot of negative things. Just didn't hear a lot. Didn't really pop, I guess, as it were. But middle infielder, young for his class, power potential. Those three things all fit the Twins pretty perfectly. I could also see Workman going to the Indians as well. I remember originally having him there. Burl Carraway is the top reliever in this class. If you are the Dodgers and you are all in on this year, you have Betts, who's going to be a free agent. You have all those other parts and pieces. There is a chance that maybe you can get Carraway fast-tracked. You can never have enough lefty relievers. You can never have enough pitching. The Dodgers have a ton of picks in this class anyways, so just take the top reliever and see what you can do with him. See how quickly you can get him there, and if you don't get him this year, you can get him next year, but it's kind of an all-in draft pick for a team that is, I feel like, all-in on this season, which hopefully happens. We'll have to see. Let's move to our comp selections. Comp round B, and then our compensation picks. Marlins lead off comp round B. After going back-to-back safe picks, they have the money to go get Jared Jones, the right-handed pitcher. Big velocity, very athletic. Who knows about the secondary stuff? A little bit older. There's some reasons why he's kind of a little bit down compared to some of the other arms in this class. But if you are the Marlins, who are a conservative team, but when they do go prep, go ceiling, Jones is a high-ceiling pitcher. Jace Bohefren, the outfielder here. Tigers are going to take an athletic outfielder at some point. I debated between him. I'm going to cough again. And the pause isn't working on this, so you guys get to see this all in non-pause time, my editing and such. So thank you for sticking with it. But you're looking at kind of like him and Chase Davis. I also considered Yohandy Morales. But if you're looking at a group, I feel like Bohefren is kind of the top-rated guy likely of that group. He's the best athlete, I want to say, of that group. Just made sense at that point in time. Carson Tucker, shortstop. The Cardinals love to take prep shortstops. They have had many of them over the past few years. They also, have taken multiple players with power potential. He has good power potential for the shortstop position. It was just let's see what fits in terms of value and what they look for. So that was my thought there. Seattle Mariners, they've been very college heavy. We've stated this repeatedly. Logan Allen could go higher. I kind of want him to go to the Indians in the second round. I mean, he does fit a lot of what they do, but just because that would be fun to watch people deal with which Logan Allen, the left-handed one. They're both left-handed. That's purely for my enjoyment as someone who runs an Indians podcast. But Allen, he's been known since high school, one of those guys who's been on the radar. He's performed well, doesn't have overpowering stuff, but just continually effective. Reds, Landon Knack is 23 years old. He is likely a reliever. He has 2 big pitches, and it's East Tennessee State. He's not in a major program. If you're the Reds, you can hopefully take him here, go under slot, save some money, maybe use that if you need to on some of those earlier picks. Knack, again, is 23, so he's a quick to the majors guy. The Reds are another team that are all in. They didn't trade for Trevor Bauer for last season. They traded for him for it this season, where he's going to be a free agent at the end of it. Could Knack help him this year? Maybe. Unlikely. I mean, I don't expect anyone to get to the majors this year. That's just the truth of it. But if you're a team like the Reds, you have multiple picks, maybe looking to save some money, maybe looking for a guy who can get to the majors sooner rather than later, and Knack makes a lot of sense. Dodgers, Nick Sweeney has been tied to them, and honestly probably should have been off the board at this point, but as you're going through the other arms I've talked about, I mean, how about the lefties in round 2 with Lonsway and Allen and Sweeney? And let's just open that list back up, as you're going down. If you want to count Fulton and Schuster, it's a loaded group of left-handed pitchers. Someone's going to, I know, that looks terrible. Someone is going to slide in this draft, and because of that, it benefits teams right around here. If you want to go and find a college arm that's probably should have been off the board or a year ago would have been off at the top of round 2, you're going to find them here in this Comp B round. I feel like Sweeney is, easily could end up in the first round. Let's just leave it at that. Instead, you get him here at 66 because it's just all so densely packed. Giants, I had them go super conservative earlier. Chase Davis being on the board gives them a prep bat with some ceiling, and Cam Brown is in that next mix of prep arms. I don't have a strong opinion on Cam Brown, other than I think he's a good pitcher, and there's some good potential there. But if you're looking to go prep after you went conservative early on, I thought those were some players that would fit. Alex Santos it's fun to put the New York kid to a New York team, and again, the Mets went all in on early picks, and Santos makes a lot of sense around this point, maybe even earlier in the round. But I just saw him and I go, oh, New York kid. You don't see those New York kids end up going to New York teams all that often. Cardinals, this was a hard one for me, honestly, one I kind of heed and hawed over more than any other pick on this screen currently. And the reason for that is, and the Cardinals are kind of all over. Who knows what they're going to do? They do, again, like power, and I know they don't necessarily need a third baseman, and I don't know if Morales is going to stay at third. He could end up at first, but he is a giant kid with big, big power. In that upper tier of prep power hitters in this class, and that's why I put him there. It's just Cardinals like power. He's an interesting prospect, a ceiling guy, and even when they've taken guys like Mateo Gil and the like that, those are guys who you kind of look at as more their power potential than their hit potential as infielders. Nationals, after 2 college players looking to go with a prep player, Mason Wynn's stock has been down. There's been concerns all over the place that pop up here and there. You can find them just in about any article that talks about the draft. Injuries, the size, the like, but legitimately talented, legitimately, I feel like as a shortstop could be a second round pick, as a pitcher could be a second round pick. I think Tanner Witt has gotten in front of him for top 2-way player in the class, but he's the number 2. And for a team like the Nationals, who gamble and who take guys more like based on where their board was, at the beginning and not at the end, looking for that sliding talent whose position has changed the most over those 2 drafts. Wynn is a guy who makes a lot of sense to them as a high ceiling player. And then we'll end with the Houston Astros. Finally get a pick here. Joe Boyle, Notre Dame. So why Joe Boyle to the Houston Astros? I think Boyle is a fascinating player. I thought he could have been a first rounder out of high school. Young for his class player who I believe early enrolled. You couldn't even draft Joe Boyle to Notre Dame. And the minute I saw that, I went, oh no. No, he was a cold weather arm, another benefit. And why did I go, oh no? Notre Dame's previous staff could not develop anything. So many players underachieved there. Kevin Biggio comes to mind immediately, and what he's become after seeming to just be stuck in neutral during his time at Notre Dame. We'll see what the new grouping can do. I was curious to see, Boyle and Cole Kmet, who had a pretty good Cape play, but then he had a really good fall and ended up being a pretty high second round pick, right? To like the Bears, maybe. I can't remember where he went in the NFL draft, but Boyle is big. He has big velocity. He is young relative to his draft class. He was a cold weather arm. He cannot harness anything right now. He needs a good pitching coach. But if you are a team who trusts your ability to develop pitching, you look at it, you're like, there are all the tools there. He could be a number 2. He could be a front of the rotation guy, not necessarily an ace type, because I don't put that title on anyone unless I think they are legitimately going to be a top 10 pitcher in baseball. But I think he could be a front of the rotation pitcher, legitimately. But he needs coached. I mean, he has had, he didn't get a chance to get much this year with the new coaching staff, and the previous Notre Dame coaching staff, I'm sure, don't know I exist, and if they do, they can't like me because I'm so negative about it. But I felt like you could make a team over the years just drafting from Notre Dame because guys blossomed in the minors under the development of teams. So you kind of add that into his value, I feel like. And you look at all the other indicators, all the other things that make sense, and you're like, Joe Boyle has a lot of potential. He's a college player who may not cost a ton, who, for a team like the Astros, who maybe want to spread it around because they're not going to have many picks. They lost that first and that second, so while they get their compensation pick here for Garrett Cole, they only have 3, 4, 5. So they can't go all in here and then punt the rest. They need some more players to help restock their minors because they traded away large portions of it a year ago. Like the Zach Greinke deal was kind of like cutting the top off of their minors, as it were, after they had already had their promotions with guys like Tucker and Jordan. So they need to use these picks well, and Boyle gives them a guy that you could develop into something special, and that's why I kind of put him here and give the Astros a little more time. Not that the Astros deserve it, but Astros fans have been through a lot. Like, no matter how you feel about them, I feel bad for fans in general because we all love our teams, and it's not our fault when our teams do things that are not good. But Joe Boyle, I think he makes some sense here. I think he could make sense to teams higher up, and there's still a crazy amount of talent left on this board. And that's why I wanted to do this to get all the teams. I wanted to do it because it's fun, and I like kind of going through and looking at all of them. But it also is kind of nice to see where guys start to slip or come together. It's like a giant puzzle, and that's how I kind of look at it. I have found this year that the smoke is smokier than ever because of what's going on. Everyone is trying to smoke screen at their hardest. So I have not. I've been using a lot more of just what teams have historically done, and then just kind of using logic. Like, hey, we had limited opportunities. Let's use the ones we have the most tape on, the most experience on. Like I said, the Cape Cod League has never been more valuable than it has for this 2020 draft. Thank you for watching these videos. I hope you've enjoyed them. Going to the new website to look at the mock, and I'll have some other things up there as well. I've been Jeff Ellis. You've all been great. Thank you.